All right, so today we're diving into a story that, on the surface, looks like an investigation into fraud, but it quickly spirals into something way, way deeper. It's the story of a woman named Sarah Kim, and it really forces us to take a hard look at identity, desire, and even truth itself. Okay, let's get into it.
And this, right here, this is the question at the very heart of this whole explainer. It's what takes this case from just a simple crime story and turns it into this fascinating and honestly pretty uncomfortable look at our own culture.
You see, the thing the investigators realized is that Sarah didn't just appear out of a vacuum. She grew out of a world that, let's be honest, often rewards a well-performed self more than an honest one. So her life, it stops being an exception and starts feeling more like an exposure.
To really get this, we have to see her as more than just a person. We have to see her as what one detective called a pressure point. Okay, so what I find really fascinating about this quote is how the lead detective, Park Mu-gyeong, starts to see the whole case. He realizes, hey, I'm not just chasing a suspect here. He was actually confronting a mirror of society's hidden desires, our worship of status and how comfortable we are with beautiful lies. So, picking up that thread of her being a pressure point, the first thing the investigation had to do was, untangle the architecture of Sarah's new self. They had to ask a really fundamental question. How do you even build a new identity from scratch? Is reinventing yourself this incredible act of freedom, maybe a way to survive a world that's already written you off? Or is it the start of a moral collapse? The case, it turns out, gives us two really powerful, totally conflicting answers. So you have these two sides of the coin. On one hand, yeah, Sarah's reinvention was a tactic, a strategy to escape a life of humiliation. But on the other hand, that new self, it became something else, an identity that demanded everyone else orbit around it, and in the end, get smaller because of it. And this is where we hear from Sarah herself. She's basically arguing that society ranks identities, it doesn't hold them sacred. So from where she's standing, she wasn't ditching morality, she was just fighting back against a world that had already decided she was worthless. But then you get this absolutely crucial counterpoint from one of her colleagues. The real question isn't whether Sarah needed to protect herself. The question is, when did that protection turn into hunger? When did her new self stop being a shield and start needing other people to be its fuel? Some critics involved in the case started to argue that Sarah's whole transformation wasn't just about getting status. It was more than that. She started to worship the idea of being invulnerable, of being totally untouchable. And once that's your goal, morality can start to look like a luxury you just can't afford. And this might be her most chilling defense of all. Sarah's claim is that she was never free. Her old life, a prison of shame and powerlessness. Her new life, also a prison, yeah, but one she built herself, one with much better lighting. So the key takeaway here is she claims she was only ever choosing between two cages. So that idea, choosing a better prison, leads us right to the stage she built for herself, the world of luxury. And this became the second major pillar of the investigation, a whole world that ran on its own very powerful, very specific set of rules. I mean, really, think about it for a second. We all know a handbag is just a handbag, right? But the world of luxury isn't about what things do. It's about fantasy, status, and what an object says about you. So why is that illusion so incredibly powerful? So the investigation basically breaks down the magic trick of luxury into three parts. First, it sells hierarchy. It makes inequality look gorgeous. Second, it sells insulation from that deep, nagging fear of just being ordinary. And third, and this is key, it requires you to forget the human hands, the actual labor that made the object. And wow, this quote just nails that last point, doesn't it? The entire glamour of a luxury item depends on us erasing the people who actually made it. That polished, perfect surface is begging us to forget the sweat, the repetition, the human cost it took to make it shine. And this was Sarah's genius, really. She got it. She understood that luxury's real power comes from its promise to soothe our deepest anxieties. It isn't just selling beauty, it's selling relief. Relief from the fear of being small, unseen, or just plain insignificant. Okay, so that brings us to the emotional engine of this entire story, the why. Why did she do all this? Again and again, the investigation kept coming back to one incredibly powerful motive: the experience of humiliation. And this is that classic, almost impossible to answer question. When someone who's been deeply shamed goes on to commit a crime, is the crime a direct result of that wound? Or did the pressure of that humiliation just reveal a character that was already there, waiting? So, in Sarah's mind, humiliation isn't just an injury, it's an education. It's not just pain, it's pain with an audience. And that experience, she argues, gives you this brutal lesson in how social power really works, who has it and who doesn't. But here's the flip side of that argument. Sarah didn't just suffer from humiliation, she became fluent in its language. She learned its grammar, and she learned how to redirect that shame, how to make other people feel small so she could feel big. It became a weapon, and she was terrifyingly good at using it. So what does that actually do to a person's mind? Well, it totally warps your sense of proportion. It can train you to want revenge. It can make dominating other people actually feel like safety. At the end of the day, it completely reorganizes your entire moral compass. And this is where Detective Park landed, his final word on it. Yes, her pain was real. No one denied that. It explains the path she took. But, and this is a big but, an explanation is not an excuse. A wound doesn't sanctify the harm you do to others. Which brings us to the end, with Sarah's deeply cynical, but, let's face it, pretty perceptive view of the world. She basically believed truth almost never wins, because by the time it finally drags itself into the room, everyone's already fallen in love with the performance. And so, we're left with this, a really haunting question. It takes the focus off of Sarah and puts it right back on us. If we, as a society, desire the beautiful illusion more than the messy, complicated truth, are we creating a world where people like Sarah aren't just possible, but completely inevitable?